Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I am doing great. It's good to see you on this fine Monday after a scorching weekend here in Texas. I see chat's pretty full, so I'm just going to go down the list before I get too far into it. I see Jim Largo, Bjorn Jorgensen, Jesse Hughes working remotely, gets to listen to the show, which is awesome. Gojatron's in here. I'm glad you're here. Ian Sweeney, Kieran Ball. No. Let's see. Chasing 80s Toys. Hey, Chris. Good to see you, man. Keith Knight. Good to see you. I did say Keith Knight. Yes, I did. Andy Morgan. Thank you, Andy. Nice to see you. Gerard, I see. Hello. Boba Hicks. Hello. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I am. I think we're good. Oh, Johnny Sorensen. Ha! Johnny Sorensen in the house. It is Johnny. Sorry, I had to do a song there. Mm-hmm. And Jason Garcia. Didn't miss you. Aha. See, there you go. So, glad to see everyone. It's always beautiful for everyone to come in here. I'm elated and excited everyone's here. As usual, we've got a roundup of news, and of course, we have a discussion to be had about prior. We're getting all these different toys from the same lines over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Where's the new IPs? So, I'm gonna hop right in, right into the news. So let's do that. Kind of as a little follow-up to the Hiss Tank. Hiss Tank's $300, and you get a bunch of figures and some accessories with it. Whether or not it's worth the price point is up to you. I can't justify the investment. I can't. Even though the sum of the parts, I think, add up to $300 fair enough, I'm not going to do it because, number one, in truth, I can't afford it. If I had $300 I could blow, I would probably get it just because I think it is an interesting vehicle, but I'm not getting it. But for the same price, you can get an actual working vehicle. Granted, it's a Jurassic Park Jeep for children, but you can get it. And with this coupon, you can get it for less than the Hiss Tank. It actually moves around. It has a motor. It can hold humans. So I just wanted to call attention to that. Will McLaughlin, I see you. Ben Stutley, I see you. Nice to see you guys as well. But I'm just saying, like, this is an actual thing that you can actually, if you weigh 130 pounds or less, which some of you do, you could get in this thing and drive around. Or you could buy a Hiss Tank with a couple figures. I'm just saying. It's one of these things that I like to look at the comparing and the contrasting of things as we will. Jesus, I mean, I'm mentally immature, but my body says otherwise. You want me to shuffle some papers on camera when I read this? What I should do is just drink scotch. Scotchy scotch. Jason says, if I could fit in one that carried my weight, I'd ride it. I mean, me too. 100%. Like, I would totally get a Jurassic Park go-kart. Are you kidding me? It would be amazing. Must go faster. Tongue-tastic voyage. Says, Jim, how the hell are you? Not going outside too much. No, I am not. Minimally, because it's way too hot outside. Keith Knight says, I drive that around my garden. My 200 cats would be the dinosaurs. That would be cool, actually. Have cats chasing you around this little thing. I could just see Keith laughing like a little kid, like, that would be great. I would laugh my tail off at that stuff. Now, speaking of dinosaurs, I have been gushing over this all weekend long. And I wanted to bring it to your attention. This is the super colossal Giganato- ah, Giganotorosaurus. I can't pronounce it. But it's huge. It is over 3 feet long. It has a swallow feature that's meant for 3 3/4 inch figures or miniature dinosaurs, but it can fit up to 6-inch figures without them getting stuck. This thing is gigantic. I've looked at several reviews online, and I've seen it scaled with 6-inch figures. It looks great. There's a T-Rex in the line that is just around the same size. The head's a bit bigger, so it looks bigger by comparison. The reason I want to bring it up is that it's consistently been on sale recently. Currently $10 off, but I saw it as low as $35 over the weekend. I've seen it fluctuate in price several times today, bottoming out at $40. Off of a list price of $70, that's almost half off. Keep your eye on the listing, because if it drops to that $40, that's a decent price for a big hunk of plastic. Like, I could not hold it in frame. Like, it is this. I'm not joking. It is this big. It works with 3 3/4 scale in terms of like it being actually, somewhat accurate size. So it works with Final Faction. It can work with Action Force and G.I. Joe Classified. It's not going to be in scale, but it looks great anyway. It's just a cool toy, and I wanted to call your attention to it because even if you don't collect dinosaurs in general, this might be just a nice, unique piece. If you got more than one, you could do some alternate paint deco on the other and have like a pair of them. Or if you're like me and you want to get some Velociraptors to go with it, and the Amber collection, the 6-inch scale Velociraptors scale really well with this thing. And those Velociraptors are actually bottoming out in price to where you can get them at retail price very easily on Big Bad, Target, Walmart, Amazon. So if it's something that you're interested in, those scale along with it, and you can get some really cool things to go with it. And I do think it's worth the money at the lower price. So keep your eyes open. I wanted to call attention to it because I know there's some folks are like, you know what, that is pretty cool. And they make other ones too. Chris says, that's a big dino. My blue raptors in the same series. Yeah, the super colossal ones. I won't be getting her just because the scale's all wrong. But it's Giganotorosaurus. Okay. That's probably what it is. Andy said, we need to bring Doctor Who figures instead of repeating old lines. Well, there are Doctor Who figures, but they're from overseas. But I agree, there needs to be a definitive Doctor Who line for those that are into it. I need a Red Dwarf line, too, and we'll get into that. Why do they always have to make them bigger? Exactly. Jason has the Super Colossal T-Rex and the Indominus. I've been looking at the Indominus, waiting for it to go on sale, too. It'd be cool to just have, like, these great big dinosaurs. Storing them is going to be a difficult prospect, but, dude, these are the kind of dinosaur toys I wanted when I was a kid. So although it's a property we've seen a lot of toys for, toys of this size, of this complexity, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before in general for dinosaurs. And I'm all in on this stuff. I was so in on this one dinosaur that I almost was like, maybe I should get the 3 3/4 inch Jurassic Park toys. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Not going down that road. But I agree with Gerard. $40 is 100% a deal for that. Steven's like, holy hell, that's cool. Not buying it. Fair enough. And I agree with Jesse. He says Mattel has not been lazy with the Jurassic World line. They've been doing every scale you can think of. They're doing lots of cool stuff. You can still get the 6-inch stuff if you want. They're just getting harder and harder to find overall, but where you can find them, the price is remaining pretty reasonable. So if you're looking 6-inch scale, you're looking for Amber Collection. The Hammond Collection, which is the most recent, is 3 3/4 inch scale, like G.I. Joe, Star Wars, that sort of a thing. So if you're looking to get this big, gigantic guy, and you want to just get all 3 3/4 inch stuff, go with the Hammond Collection. If you want to get a few 6-inch scale dinos to go with it, for other lines, go with the Amber collection. I heartily recommend any of the Velociraptors and the Pterodactyls. Those are great. I would also buy it for $1. If these were $1, I'd have too many of them, and I would just drown in Giganotosauruses. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy. Bump, 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 bump. Chris said, I had it on last live stream with Jimmy and Tracy. Yes, you did. The blue, your blue. I remember. I would get her in a stuffed animal, though. I would get her in a stuffed animal myself. Kieran Ball asks, you need a rubber glove to remove the figures. You don't. There's a hatch underneath, and you should be able to pull it right out. But you could use rubber gloves if you wanted to. There's a couple you could do. That's true. Hey, Rolando. Nice to see you. Worldman of Cardboards, just joined, driving home. Air conditioner quit at work. It's hot. It is. It really is. Andy says, Red Dwarf figures, that would be so cool. USB's newer British items. I agree. Bum. Jason says, Mattel was so on it when it got the Jurassic World line, bought the first 2 waves. Yeah, it's good stuff, and it was very tempting, but because I was just starting out collecting, I had to choose my battles, and as a result, Jurassic was just not something that was in my purvey, but now I'm cherry-picking the larger dinosaurs just because there's so many cool things you can do. Ian Sweeney says, the only other figure of that scale I would get would be a Godzilla. I would also agree. I don't think they make a Godzilla that big that is that simple. They make pretty big Godzillas, but that's much bigger than the Godzillas that I have. If there was a Godzilla in that scale, it would probably be about 5 foot tall. It would be huge. Usual Mike is here. Hello, says hi, and I say hi right back. Good to see you. Bjorn says that's going to be massive next to my 1/18-inch scale figures. Yes, it would be. It could possibly swallow some of them. Steven says, I want a Megalon in that scale and level of detail. So Megalon from Godzilla versus Megalon, the big beetle. Yeah, that would be great. I actually really enjoy that. Gojatron says, Mattel has reached peak Jurassic potential. They're making a Gennaro on the toilet. Yes, it's really good looking. And I believe it's in the 3 3/4-inch scale, but it's that exclusive piece, so it's like, ugh. And I can't. Jim Largo bought the Giganotorosaurus just so he can get a figure of my ex-wife 14. You're right, Gerard. I don't think Red Dwarf Toys would ever happen. I really don't. As popular as the show is, I just don't think that they would see the potential in merchandising in general. It's very hard to get Red Dwarf merchandise in general. Every piece of Red Dwarf merch I own is bootleg. Every last bit of it. Jim Larson says, Red Dwarf and Blake 7 need figures in spaceships. I agree. Jason Garcia says, Jax did a 2 foot tall and 3 foot long, I'm guessing Godzilla, because I know I have it. I can see the picture I posted on Discord. Let me see if I can find it so we can show everybody. Let me see if I can find it. It seems up we got them. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, here we go. So, it's on the far right of this picture. This big boy right here. That's a big Godzilla. I would love that. I would love to have one of those. I don't know what they charged for it. I'm not sure I want to know what they charged for it, but it's a beautiful piece for sure. Definitely a beautiful piece. So now that we have covered that particular toy in great detail, just use this for additional Megalon voice acting. Send money directly to Jim's PayPal. That's true. I would do that if you really want to hear it. Ted Millich, nice to see you, pal. Ian Sweeney with a good point. Says an allo figure line would be able to have figures, play sets, and vehicles. What's not to love? I agree. And most of the great British shows and sitcoms would have interesting set pieces like a Faulty Towers play set and figure set would be so good. Be so good. Be so good. Dun, 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 dun. Usual Mike says the Hammond collection looks good, but only seen the Malcolm plus some other dinos. Yeah, there's some great stuff that's out there, and more's coming. It just depends upon what you're into, really. It's nice to see they're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Boba Hicks says, "Gotta hit the hay. Up early tomorrow. See you all on the replay. No worries. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you all the same." Fuller's Figures Connor is here. Nice to see you, pal. All right, now getting into the next news item. Those of you that are into Eagle Moss or Hero Collector, they've reportedly gone into bankruptcy administration. I'm not going to read this article, but they're a company that have been doing model work for quite a long time. And what they've been doing is that you have like a little subscription, and they'll send you pieces of the model as they make them. And there's a lot of people that have been building different models, and they're not finished, and they're not going to be producing them. They're not taking any more orders. It's a real pain in the keister. I don't like reporting this, but it is something to be aware of. So if you collect these things, you're in a bit of a tux. Not real happy about that. Yes, Ian, the Hammond collection is 3 3/4 inch scale. Yes, sir. Hammond collection is that. And then the Amber collection is the 6-inch scale, which has been discontinued. So, getting into exclusives, they've got a Black Series Boba Fett in disguise, and this is the one that hurts. A G.I. Joe classified Dr. Mindbender. It's an exclusive at their booth, and you can pre-order at HasbroPulse.com. This is a beautiful Dr. Mindbender, and I'm really pissed off. Why aren't we getting this as a retail item? The Boba Fett, I understand. This is perfect exclusive fodder, where it's just, it's a paint variant. It's whatever. It's fine. But this Dr. Mindbender, I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? Like it's so dumb that they're not. I really don't like what they're doing with this, because this is something that should see a retail release. Like so many other things we talk about when we talk about exclusives. Like, come on, that's a great looking Dr. Mindbender. Why would this only be available at San Diego? There are thousands upon thousands of people that want their hands on this. And bad for business, kids. Bad for business. Not happy. I'm not happy about this. Jason, you're right. I think you're right. He'll get a general release with less accessories, and any leftovers will hit Pulse. I agree with that. I agree. I still don't like the idea that this is the first place that they're getting them. Jesse asked if they disclose why it temporarily appears on Best Buy's website. Probably was a mistake of some kind. And Jonathan Redmond, hello, coming in, saying the same thing. Yeah, I think he'll get a retail release, but it's just without showing what makes him exclusive. It's a very difficult pill for me to swallow. Speaking of things that are being released, they're doing a bunch of independent showcases. Todd McFarlane did officially announce the superpower stuff, so they should be hitting shelves in earnest very soon. He also revealed several other things, including this multiverse Batman. Says he's teasing Court of Owls, so there's some interesting stuff there. So if you're into that storyline, some figures might be coming your way there. He has also talked about bringing back his Dragons line, but before anyone gets excited, they're just statues and non-articulated, so immediately I'm just like, I'll stick with the dinosaurs, because screw that. Just screw that all to hell. And I've also seen multiple sources confirming that, as far as we can tell, the Turtles mold from those Stranger Things 2-packs we talked about last week it is a new sculpt. It's entirely new mold, down to the shell and everything in between. They're using the same sculpt for each turtle, with the heads alternating expression and stuff like that. But the body of themselves are more or less confirmed to be new sculpts. So I'm very excited by that. It's a good prospect for that line. Kieran Ball says, if you want a cheap Dr. Mindbender, check out Hasbro Action Man Dr. X figures from the 90s, multiple 12-inch versions with mini body gimmicks. Yes, but for a G.I. Joe Classifieds Mindbender would need to be 6 inches, but that is still pretty cool. Now, with more things that don't make a ton of sense, but I can see what they're doing. Jesse says, the new sculpts look good, I just want the turtles, not the other figures. Exactly, and I think that's the whole point. They're just trying to do stuff. Keith Knight says, it's too hot here. We're not used to this witchcraft in the UK. It's like camping in Satan's underpants. Yes, I would agree. I'm used to it, but that's because I live where I live. So now they have a Motu Masterverse He-Man versus Skeletor. So we haven't seen a classic version of Skeletor released in the Masterverse line yet. And we have seen the pre-orders for this He-Man go up. The difference is this 2-pack also has die-cast weapons. So all the weapons are made out of metal, which is cool. But I have no interest in die-cast weapons, but it just shows they made the sculpts, which means a retail version of this character is going to be coming to Masterverse for the 40th anniversary. So if you like the 40th anniversary Masterverse He-Man, you will be able to get a Skeletor. So this is going to be like what I call like a living room item. So when I get my larger place, when I get a house, whatever the case may be, in the living room will be like showcase pieces, just kind of like to show like I'm into this, right? And these will be in the living room, but I'm not getting these particular ones for the simple fact that I'm getting way ahead of myself here. It's probably going to be way too expensive. I don't care about the die-cast anything. It's got a very nice box that's reboxable, which is nice. Comes with reprints of the comic books, which is really cool. I mean, this is a cool concept. I like what they're doing with it, but I don't need it because this confirms that we're going to get this Skeletor at retail without the die-cast weapons. And if you've already pre-ordered this guy without the die-cast weapons, you'll be good here as well. Interesting, but unnecessary. Bjorn says, I'm kind of partial to Anal Blast. Well, Anal Blast is never coming back. That band is done. So I think that if a Satan's Underpants band comes out, you'll be in good shape. Mafex being Mafex, they've teased a figure for the Batman. I like that movie quite a bit, but not $100 for a figure like that movie. So the Flock Men Kiki is a no-go. Yes. Yay! Self-rusting weapons! I agree. Like, if I had those, I would immediately just coat them in clear coat. Like crazy. Just to make sure they're safe. It seems like it's a weird move, but because of those features, that leans into it being an exclusive. Because it's a variant that you can only get in a special place, and for all, it's fine. I think that's perfectly fine. I realize that most people in here are probably not big fans of the Michael Bay Transformers films. I am not a fan of it. But if you are, or if you know someone that is, there is a combination pack of 6 key characters five key characters. You got Ironhide, Bumblebee, Optimus Prime, Ratchet, and Jazz for $140, which means you're paying around $26-ish a figure, which isn't horrible. So if you don't want this into that, you can get it. But I thought it was interesting that they're putting this combo pack out for that specific set of characters. Which I'm like, why don't you give me a combo pack of the Studio 86 series and reissue some of those. Maybe do that. Maybe that would get you more money. I'm just saying. That would be nice. Jason's saying I think his brother already owns those individually. Right. It's a reissue. So for people that maybe are wanting those to go with their Bumblebee version of those characters, they could mix and match, it's good that they're reissuing it. It's a decent price. And it's not an exclusive outside. You can get a Hasbro Pulse, but it's not exclusive beyond that, right? So I think it's good, but I think that they would do better to do that with other characters in other lines. Maybe we'll see that moving forward. Speaking of exclusives, the Lizard will be up for pre-order on July the 21st at Walmart's Collector Con, which is really just pre-order central for Walmart. The character looks great. He's got some cool accessories with the beakers and some alternate hands, and I believe there's an alternate head there as well, which is more than I expected to get with this figure. But he's a big want. It's a great looking figure, very true to the original design of the Lizard, while still hearkening to certain comic versions and the cartoon in one great design. So bear that in mind. He's Walmart exclusive. And the pre-orders go up on the 21st, which is 3 days from now. So be ready, those of you that are into that. So now, y'all have heard quite a bit by now between the picture that was on the screen. You may have seen the video review that Pixel Dan put, but here we've got this 3-pack of Pulsar, Big Jim, and Matt Mason, which are all revived and reimagined Mattel characters from back in the day. These were all 12-inch figures, I believe, 8 to 12-inch figures back in the day. And now they've been reimagined as 4.5-inch scale, which is meant to be very similar to Secret Wars style. 5 points of articulation, and they do more or less match up with the Secret Wars stuff. And you can see right on the package, these are Mattel creations. I honestly don't know who these are for, because unless you just want these as a display piece, the scale makes no sense to me at all. I don't know anyone who's like head over heels in love with Secret Wars and says, "Oh, just what I need to complete my Secret Wars collection, Pulsar, Big Jim, and Matt Mason." If they were going to bring these back, I would think the idea would be to revive them in the 6-inch scale and, ramp out the line, especially Big Jim and Matt Mason. Pulsar had like 2 figures in a playset. I had a Pulsar figure when I was a kid, and I loved that dude. It was just so cool to like watch his heart pump and open up his brain and stuff. He was pretty well articulated for the time because he had full range of motion on the shoulders and he had elbows, and so he had all the stuff we have now, but in this gigantic thing. Great figure. Loved it. But there was no one else in my collection for him to scale with, so he just kind of sat there. And those of you in chat, I know there's a lot of you Big Jim fans, and I know Largo is certainly a Matt Mason fan as well. So it's like Jesse's saying, there's no accessories. There's really nothing else to these. So I hope that this is just them dipping their toes in the water and seeing if these get snapped up. And hopefully we'll see more from these lines. I think that some of these could be really cool. Johnny Sorensen, due to cutbacks, he's been rebranded Tiny Jim. Yeah, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And as some of you were saying in chat, Pixel Dan did do a review of these on his channel. I've seen it. I think it's a very, very honest review. And he's like, I like them, but he's not quite sure what they're doing either. So, for them to bring back these figures is great. These characters, for them to do it in this way, I don't understand. I do not understand myself. Jim Largo says it reminds me of the Hasbro conventions exclusive they did a few years ago with the Micronauts and ROM. Yeah, it's just kind of out of nowhere, sort of thing, and I'm just like, okay, you know. And we'll be bringing these guys up more when we get into the main discussion today. There's some San Diego Comic-Con exclusives for Storm Collectibles. They have a Kintaro action figure with just a bunch of heads and accessories and all kinds of cool stuff from Mortal Kombat. From Samurai Showdown, you got the Nakaruru. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. She's a fighter from an SNK game. Got some cool accessories. Then you also have from Street Fighter 2, Zangief, who's a big boy. Now, the Zangief could be really interesting when it comes to like doing customs because he's just such a big, imposing fella. So you could make some cool things out of this particular character. There's just some cool potential there with a Dremel tool and some paint. You could do some neat things with that figure. So, or if you're actually a Street Fighter fan, that would also be good too. Coach Trump says, I'm the target audience for these Mattel figures. You are. And me too, to a certain degree, because I loved Pulsar. I didn't have Big Jim or Matt Mason. But I certainly remember Pulsar, and I'm like, do I get them? Depends on how much they cost. And it's just weird. Gerard's got to go for work for 7 hours. No worries. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you. Get some rest. Jesse thought about these the Street Fighter figures, but now I must wait to see what Jada is doing with Street Fighter. I agree, because Jada does some great stuff. Jonathan Ribbon says, I will not be surprised if Hasbro makes the upcoming indie figures in the 5 POA retro style. Like the 5 POA, that doesn't bother me nearly as much as it does the scale. So when you make a 4.5 or 5-inch scale figure, you're really limiting the mix and match potential with that. It really, I don't like it. Now, they have confirmed they're doing 3 3/4 scale and 6-inch for the indies. That's been confirmed in multiple news sources and not just rumors. But I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually see them. If they do 6-inch, 100% in if they look good. If they do 3 3/4 inch and the sculpts are good, I'll be in on both. And I have no problem with that. I always wanted the 3 3/4 inch scale Indiana Jones stuff, and I never got a chance to get them. And those will probably have hopefully, some vehicles and playsets, and I will be in on those. If they do the 6-inch, I have no expectations beyond core characters. I'll be happy to have them. I'd love to have just a set of Raiders of the Lost Ark figures in 6-inch. If I get Temple of Doom and Last Crusade on top of that, fine, I'll take it, as long as they're good. But that's a big if. If they take the lessons they learned from Classifieds and apply it to Indiana Jones, I think we're going to be in good shape. I got the Amazon exclusive Roadblock over the weekend, and he is amazing looking. So if they can take that kind of an approach to Indiana Jones, I'm all about it, 100%, for sure. Now, just to kind of kick things off here and give you guys a little bit of a taste of some interesting creativity that's out there. I got a message earlier today from Rolo, Masters Maniac Mexico, and as you guys know, he makes toys. He and his partner Marco make toys, and he wanted to show this to me because he knew what the topic was today and wanted to get everyone's feedback on this. This is a Godzilla Alien, a Godzamorph, is what he's calling it, or a Xenozilla. I would prefer to call it a Xenozilla myself, but it's a Godzilla body type modified and cross-mutated with a xenomorph from the Aliens series, and they're fully articulated. beautiful paint jobs. I love the sculpting. I love the design. And even though these are taking two properties and just creating something totally different, um, it's still more creative than a lot of the stuff we just went over. Um, I am in love with these figures. Um, and I don't know when they're going to market. As soon as we find out when they're going to market, you will be the first to know, because I will probably be among the first to know. But I wanted to show these off, and I also have another picture of just one of them that might show more detail. Let me pull it up. So just to get a little bit closer in on that. So it does have the little secondary mouth, and you can see how things are molded in, and the paint is just compelling. They're beautiful. Just beautiful. Legally distinct too. That's right. That's right. Exactly. And another little teaser for you, shifting gears to the fully licensed and legally distinct Never Ending Story toy line that they're developing. He showed me this. As you might be able to tell, this is the Orin from Never Ending Story. It is full to scale for you to hold, and it comes with the first set of figures on its own. Very, 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 very into this. So I want to at least show you some guys that are actually doing creative things, or bringing IPs to market that we never got. With the Never Ending Story and so forth. Like, we never had those. So it's very cool. Goes like, oh mama, give me some of those God's aliens or Xenozillas or whatever. And I just see a bunch of people like Xenozilla has a nicer ring to it. Yes, please. What? Silver and red ones are nice. What? And yes, please. I like them. Exactly. Jonathan Redmond says, realistically, I think indie would be best done like Marvel Legends and Black Series level at worst due to the license fee. Classified as so high quality due to them being Hasbro's own IP. I agree, but if they just took what they learned with the face sculpts alone, they might be okay. Steven's like, how the hell big was that face hugger? I don't know. Jason Garcia says, I have the RN symbol made out of soap on a rope. That's awesome. That's very, very cool. Very, very, very cool. So, the big question for today's discussion is, why aren't we seeing a lot of new IPs? And the ones that we are seeing, why aren't they successful? Like, what makes the toy industry stagnate, right? And I'm going to just bury the lead here. I don't really know the answer, but I'm going to give you all the things I can think of. And I know you guys have some ideas too. In the case of like Indiana Jones, it's been tried multiple times. It didn't always go right. So the thought would be, with this final Indiana Jones movie, they have one last chance to get it right. So I think that there's some of that there. And what Jason Garcia is saying is 100% true, is that nostalgia sells. It really does. It really does. And people are more likely to buy the things that they recognize than take a risk on something new. But every so often you come across a Final Faction or an Action Force, which are, for all intents and purposes, completely new IP. And they're selling like gangbusters. So there's stuff coming out, like those figures we looked at last week, like the old comic book heroes, and even that can have a nostalgia bite for it, because if you know those comic characters, you get it. But it's new. We've never seen these before. Um, you know, and Jim Largo with a good point. Everything old is new again seems to be the corporate philosophy of many toy makers. Now, speaking from personal experience, and this is where you guys are going to, rail against me on this. Being new to collecting, only a year in, to have the opportunity to have updated versions of toys I never had as a kid is really appealing to me, right? However, that doesn't mean I don't want to see cool new stuff. like Savage Crucible, like Action Force, like Final Faction. Um, I do think that there's room for everything, but even a lot of the newer stuff that I'm seeing still seems to be kind of not derivative, but it harkens to something else, right? Because obviously, Action Force will bring you some twinges of remembrance for a G.I. Joe, and certainly Action Force itself. And Bobby Valla makes no bones about the fact that he loves G.I. Joe, and that's part of why he wanted to do Action Force. But it is brand new IP that has some roots in nostalgia, so it has an advantage there, in my opinion. Fuller Figures, Connor says, I think launching 6-inch indie figures will go down the line as sequel trilogy figures. Fair enough. Hasbro need to come out strong with Away from Raiders. I agree. They need to really hit the ground running. Because if you give me a solid original, 3 movies indie figures, I will probably relent and buy the stuff from the new movie, provided it doesn't completely suck. Because it might be a great movie. I don't know. I'm not making any assumptions there. If the movie is great, of course I'll get figures from that. But you have to show me that you're going to do what I want. Because I'm not just going to just get new movie figures so they come out. Not going to happen. You got to show me some kind of promise you're going to do the old stuff too. Jesse Hughes says, if you're into Mythic Legions, their All-Stars 5 wave is on pre-order starting July 29th. Best time to buy these figures at non-scalper prices. There you go. Godzilla says, movies, TVs, and toys are all stuck on old franchises because they're afraid to invest money in anything new. Keep squeezing the lemon till it's dry. There you go. I mean, that's why Motu Origins exists. They figure they're releasing this, which looks just like the old stuff, but they're updated for collectors, and they're betting on the fact that parents will then share it with their kids, who will then have nostalgia for the franchise and all this stuff. So far, it seems to be working. Ian Sweeney says, nostalgia not only sells, is an acceptable excuse to give to non-collectors. Yeah. Andy Morgan says, could it be the people and the companies want to relive their childhood? I mean, that's possible. Sure. Because a lot of people that work at toy companies now grew up buying the toys of the toy company that they go to. And the problem you run into with that, Andy, is that I know from anecdotal reference from Bobby and some other people that we've seen interviews for in the industry, they tend not to let fans of a franchise work on that franchise at the toy companies for whatever reason. Hasbro is really weird about that, where they don't let like Star Wars fans work on Star Wars and so forth. It's very odd. So I would not look at any of the larger corporate people at these companies as being toy fans. If they were, a lot of the decisions they make wouldn't be made. So is it possible? Sure. Do I think that's the majority or a large drive for all this stuff? I don't. Just because of some of the behavior we've seen in the way that they release toys. But good question. Jonathan Redmond says the new IPs like Action Force and Mythic Legions are being done by new toy collectible companies. The older companies tend not to take risks with new IPs, though Mattel have done a great job with He-Man. That's kind of the gold standard right now. Bjorn also echoing, saying no one wants to take a risk anymore, other than the smaller guys. And even the smaller guys don't necessarily want to take a risk. Or they are taking risks, and in my opinion, taking the wrong risks. A lot of you in chat like the Marauders figures. I don't. It's not because they're sculpted badly. It's not because they aren't compelling figures. But the scale. I realize there's more than 2 scales. But if you're trying to break into a market where there are 2 dominant scales of 3 3/4 inch and 6 inch, maybe you should stick to one of those scales. Personally. But that's the main reason I don't like those figures. Number 1 reason. I don't pay attention to them. Because I'm like, I can only really play with these and other 5-inch lines that I'm not necessarily into. So it's a big ask for me. Jim Largo brings up a good point. Nacelle Company did a good thing by taking a forgotten line like Roboforce and revamping it with a modern twist. That's the kind of nostalgia bit I can get behind, where they're taking something that's not like, there's some nostalgia for it, and there's probably a few hardcore fans out there, but not many. You get to take something and give it a do-over and try to give it some really cool features and do some really interesting things with it. And it scales well, in line with 6-inch scale. Like the nice big robots that would, you put them next to a 6-inch figure, they make sense. And I hope they get to continue doing that, because I think it's a really great idea to take something that was a cool idea at the time, but with a modern sensibility, it's going to be something else. So Jason Garcia says, can't be too close to the source. Keep you from getting high off your own supply. Also avoid people like when plant themselves in a line or make poor decisions. I understand it. I understand that. Bjorn showing his love for Marauders, which totally understandable. Jonathan Redmond says a figures line would need to be 100% perfect for me to even consider picking it up if it's not 6-inch. There you go. Because Jonathan, for example, is only a 6-inch collector, where I do some 3 3/4 and mostly 6-inch. And even Motu Origins, if you do the measurement, they're 6 inches when they stand straight up. So I'm still technically in the same scale. They're just massive. So Ben Stutley says, I worry that creative types in TV, film, and toys are scared to stick their neck out with something new in case it isn't on message, and then it's career over. I understand not wanting to take the risk, but taking the risk is how we got the stuff we have nostalgia for, right? And there are, every so often there's a new movie that comes out that people are like, holy shit, that was a really good movie. What? Why don't we not see toys of that? Like John Wick. And there's been sporadic collectibles about that franchise, but why not toys? They just did a new Matrix film. Why not make a massive 3 3/4 inch scale line for Matrix? You take collectibles, collectors, and people let their kids see those movies. It'd be a whole thing. Steven with a good idea. You could take Clash of the Titans and revamp that. Get a new Kraken. Like redo that line. You're dipping in to the nostalgia, but it's something. It's an itch that needs to be scratched. Ian Sweeney says, if you could have a toy line from any IP, regardless of viability, what would it be? Personally, he'd like one based on the old Buster Crab Flash Gordon. It's a good question. Okay, so I have a couple answers to that because I think they're all kind of interrelated. Okay, I would love to see in the 3 3/4 inch scale at the vintage collection Star Wars style of articulation and quality, a fully realized toy line for the entire Terminator series, for the Aliens series, Aliens, Alien 3, all that stuff, and Predator, all in the same scale. Maybe throw in RoboCop as well. Give me some high quality 3 3/4 inch scale with playsets, vehicles, accessories galore, the whole shebang-a-bang, and make them all, work together. Because you can have all kinds of cool crossovers and stuff like that. Because we never really had decent Terminator toys. You have like the off decent statue or whatever, but just like really good toys. And then, of course, you add in Predator and Alien and RoboCop. I'd be a happy guy. That'd be one I'd really like to see. Johnny Sorensen says, weird things with Hasbro is most other businesses, at least one employee is familiar with their own product, not clueless. I agree. Don't worry about it, Bill. Shit happens. It's okay. Jim Largo with an excellent point. As Michael French is fond of saying, the fans are doing the best work. I agree. Because guns, lots of guns. Exactly. Connor Fuller says, I'd like someone to redo the A-Team in 6-inch scale with tons of accessories. I would love that. I'd love to see them revive in 3 3/4 and 6-inch, because 3 3/4 means we get the van, we get some. It's like take some of the best vehicles they made during the show and just make them. That'd be great. Hiya Toys is doing most of these, but just the figures, and they're also in like 5-inch scale. So I was specific with the 3 3/4 inch scale. You see what I did there? Yes, yes, yes. Didn't Kenner do that, but kind of 4-inch scale? Yes. There were RoboCop toys, there were Terminator toys, but they didn't scale together. They have done Aliens and Predator, but they didn't scale together for the most part. Steven wants a new Condor Man line. Okay. Rumor has it that they're going to be doing Terminator 2 soon. Who? Like, who and what scale? Double scale the A-Team. Yes, because I think that 6-inch would be perfect. It would match along with so many lines that are out there, and 6-inch being dominant, that's your money maker, and it would be really satisfying to have it. But when you take a vehicle-driven television show or film and you put it in 3 3/4 inch scale, and you do the vehicles like Jurassic Park. So, like, Mattel would be the perfect company to get the A-Team license, because they've proven they can do vehicles to great effect in 3 3/4 inch scale in just the last few years of Jurassic Park. Let them do A-Team. That would be amazing. I'd love you know what? I also like a Tremors toy line. Give me a Tremors toy line with all the variants of the Graboids and all the different characters, and, because you could play in a sandbox with that stuff. Maybe give me small play sets like the convenience store, right? Chang's convenience store, and then have like the rocks that they are staying on at the end of the first film. Maybe a couple other play sets, a couple trucks. Done and dusted. 3 3/4 inch scale Tremors toy line. I'd be in on that. Ozzy Rule says, "Hey, sir, who do you think is making the best horror movie figures in the game today?" That's a tough one. I'd have to say right now Jada, because they're doing some Universal Monsters toys that are just out of this world and amazing price points. Now they're not making like contemporary horror stuff like Hellraiser, Pinhead, stuff like that. NECA has the best sculpts, but their figures are crap. I've got the Savage World 5.5-inch scale figures, but those were interpretations of the figures. So if you're looking for good horror figures, go to Jada, get the Universal stuff, buy the crap out of it, write letters to them, let them know you want them to get the licenses for the other stuff, because if this Universal Monsters thing does well, maybe they'll be able to get the licenses for all the other horror movies we love so much and yank it away from NECA, who are just ruining so many different IPs. Jason wants Mattel to get the Dino Riders license. They have half the line already done. There you go, with, the whole Jurassic Park thing. Trevors, just all Trevors? No. Tremors. I'm watching you. Steven says, how about Bobby Vela get the license for Rambo? That'd be badass. I agree. Put Rambo in Action Force? Of course. Get out of town. I'm in. Jim Largo says, I love the vehicles Playmobil has been doing, but I'm not a fan of their figure design. I'm not either. I understand it. I support it. I've just never been a Playmobil guy. And it's something where it's a tough thing to do. Zombie, aka Jesse, says, hey, Jim and chat, but watching while at work, I'd like to see some of my old favorite lines redesigned the same way Motu has. I'd like to see Silverhawks brought back. Silverhawks are in the works right now. Forget the company who's doing them, but I think it's Super 7. They are coming back, but with it being Super 7, the quality might not be so great, but they are coming back. I would like to see them redone too, because I loved the Silverhawks when I was a kid. Bill fell asleep in his chair. I understand. Jason Garcia says, there are some Tremors collectibles out there in some odd scale. Yep, I've seen them. Computer Warriors was very underrated. Okay. Rollmate Cardboard. John also had Pulsar, had Bionic Man. They fought a lot. I bet they did. I was your first. No, I wasn't. Yeah, you were. Ian Sweeney with a really fun question. Was there a Danger Mouse toy line? Not that I know of, and certainly not in the U.S. I would love a Danger Mouse toy line. If you put a Danger Mouse toy line in the same scale as the Diamond Select Muppets, I would be all in on that. In fact, give them all the cartoon licenses. Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, Ren and Stimpy, Beavis and Butthead, all that, and put them in the same scale as Muppets. I would be amazing. Jason Garcia wants the Mighty Max line back. That's one. It says, I have a couple NECA figures I have it hanging on the wall, so I'm afraid to open them because of people's reviews of them. Yes. Bjorn would also like to see The Shadow or another go at Dick Tracy. I think that would be cool. Worldman Cardboard would like the toy companies to keep revamping their IPs. G.I. Joe of the 80s did not look like the line from the 60s, but it kept the concept updated for new generation. Well, see, they tried that with classifieds, and we all got really mad at the laser guns. So I agree that updating is fun, and it's a good idea. But we tend to get really... Because we, the fans, are just as responsible for this shit. Because we keep asking for the same old crap. Not you, but as a community, it tends to be a thing. Bill's like, right now, I'm only concerned about the new Superpower toys. That I kind of agree. I like those too, and I definitely want them. Okay, so there was a Danger Mouse toy line in the UK a few years ago. Okay, all right. Matt Mason could work as an Imagine Next line. Figures, vehicles, playsets. I agree. It would be cool. Steven says that Giganotorosaurus versus the Cloverfield monster, probably close in size. I can see that, sure. Ooh, Gojatron with a good idea. I want an entire Harryhausen-based toy line. Clash of the Titans, Jason the Argonauts, Sinbad Trilogy, figure ships, and monsters. I'm in. Like Flynn, take my money. I would love to see that. Keith Knight is building a Playmobil city. Love Playmobil stuff. The figures are cheesy children's toys, and Giobra have not deviated from that since 1974. You custom the PM figures. And that's the thing. They've always been relatively easy to obtain. They've kind of held their price point for a long time. And once you get into the aesthetic, like, the sky's the limit. They're almost more versatile than Lego in that respect. And I think that's awesome. Yeah, I'm willing to bet, Bill, that you're going to see the superpower stuff flood a little bit. At least a little bit. At least enough for us to get them. We will find them, sir. We will find them. We have enough people in the field. We'll get them. Jim Logan's like, excuse me, those were Nerf guns, not laser guns. Johnny Sorensen says, my number one is New Toxic Crusaders, but Subpar 7 is swatting that on that IP and puts out almost nothing. I agree. Rollo's here says, better late than never. I'll just listen for a minute to see where to catch up with you. Already showed the Godzilla Alien, and I renamed it the Xenozilla. Because, Xeno, Xenozilla. This made sense to me. Stephen S. No reissue of McDonald's figures in that train playset? I mean, I'd be okay with that. If they were to do a 6-inch scale McDonaldland figures with all the articulation, like, sure, I loved those. I had the 12-inch or the 10-inch. I think 10-inch, 8 or 10-inch scale. I had all those figures as a kid. Loved them. World Made of Cardboard says that the classifieds did not keep to the core concept. True. What they forget? Duke and the others introduced a military line that could work for today. Oops, not politically correct enough. That's fair. That's a thing. Got the green light on Xenozilla. There you go. Yeah, the McDonaldland set. I had that as a kid too. My grandmother had it at her apartment. I would play with them, and they were always like, it was a nice diversion from the fact that I had only brought so many toys with me, and I just stopped having fun with them, and it was a nice something different to do while I was waiting for reruns of Spider-Man to come on TV, because it was always a treat to go to her place, because where she lived, the syndication had the 81 Spider-Man TV series in syndication. I didn't have it back home. I always was able to get 2 episodes of Spider-Man in when I was at her place. And I was waiting for that, and I was like bored for whatever reason. Don't know why. Why would I be bored in a concrete apartment with just my grandma? Because there was nothing to do. Bjorn says those toys that use the zipline gimmick are cool. Sky Commanders. Yeah, they're pretty cool. But I think if Sky Commanders were to come back, you would want to get them probably in 3 3/4 inch scale. And you'd want to be able to detach the cables, and you'd want to revamp the concept so they can do more than just go up and down the cords. Great toys, great concept, but for them to work now, you'd have to do some different stuff for sure. Jim Largo says you can always tell which one is Ronald McDonald at a music colony because he's sesame seed on his buns. You son of a Jim. Stephen S. remembers the Grimace figure was the hard one to find. So you'll be making the Playmobil City when you get the space next year. Right on. Cool. That'll be. I can't wait to see that thing. I cannot wait to see that thing. So, I think ultimately everyone that said risk is probably correct. That's really what it boils down to. But it also comes down to the reason they're not willing to risk these things is that every time they try something new, we either just flat out don't buy it, or they're trying to revamp something from our childhoods and we complain it's not the same. I think that happens a lot. Now, I don't want to blame collectors for being picky about quality. That's not what I mean. Quality should always be there. But we're talking about concepts and branding. If they're not hitting all the right points, I mean, Motu Origins, I think, is the gold standard where you have the look of the old stuff, but you have updated articulation and collectability at a good price point. That's how you restart an old toy line. Masterverse is nice. It's kind of in case you missed classics, here's something for you. The toy line based upon the new children's cartoon, which is that weird anime scale, I have no interest in it, but from what I understand, kids love it. And if kids love it, that's great. That means it's going to live on. But that means that the He-Man toys, that come out after we're dead are not going to look anything like what we had, and that's okay. That's got to be okay. They're not going to be able to do what we've loved in our lifetime after our lifetimes have passed. So I think that the way that they get there to keep these toy lines alive is to continuously try something new, but do it smart. Not just pull a 90s G.I. Joe and repaint everything and try fancy adjectives in the toy line, trying to sell it to the same people. They have to realize that their target market's going to have to change. Fortnite was a good idea because kids play that video game like crazy. I don't know how well they sell. I never met a child with a Fortnite toy. Never. Not that I'm interviewing lots of children asking what toys they play with. That would be creepy and weird, but you understand my point. It's a whole thing. And I think that with children in particular, just seemingly being less interested in toys, there's a concern there. But I would also postulate that the toys that they are making for children aren't that interesting. In my opinion, they're not interesting. As someone who loves toys, I know a good toy when I see one. And I think that they need to have more respect for children when they're making toys, to make something that's not just a one-off thing. That toy lines aren't really a thing for children. They have, like the low-cost alternatives to Marvel Legends that are like an inch scale shorter, which are nice. They're nice toys, but they're inconsistent, and I feel like there's a lot of things they could be doing to have more respect for kids, to give them a reason to get into toys, and a lot of the kids that are like 9, 10, 11 years old now, look at the toys that they were making 10 years ago for children. Not that great. So I think that there's an equal Ouroboros here, like this never-ending, figure eight of what the toy lines are doing versus what the collectors want versus what kids want. I think that there's only so much that you can do to hit all those things. And I think Final Faction, like Origins, is one of those toy lines. Appeals to collectors, appeals to kids, certainly appeals to the wallet. Got multiple lines of attack with a comic book and a cartoon show. They could do that in perpetuity because, we collectors are buying that shit by the case and we're justifying it the whole way. And I've heard multiple stories from people of going to see Final Faction for themselves and seeing a kid get really excited and walk away with a toy. So there's hope. There is hope for the toy industry for sure. Certainly hope. And, when it comes to doing a cartoon for a toy line, that's where some of your risk would come in. Instead of paying big bucks for commercials on television, if you did a YouTube series, a good one, because the Final Faction one, it's not that great. But if you did a proper animation and did a show on YouTube or something similar to that, because kids watch YouTube, guys, they do. I think there's a lot of potential there for sure. World Made of Cardboard says, my brother grew up on 12-inch G.I. Joe. He did not like my G.I. Joe. He even said, that's not my G.I. Joe, but the line still lives on in some form. I agree. Johnny Sorensen says, it depends upon who owns the biggest warehouses to land a contract to buy in bulk, maybe locked at Walmart, Target, etc. I agree. It just depends on what we're talking about. What we talked about in the video a couple weeks ago with GameStop, depending upon the moves that they make with all the changes they're making in their company, if they lean into the toys just a little bit more, maybe rebrand the name and become, a bigger box toy store, if they show they're taking it seriously, they could take over the market. We could see. Jim Largo says, we're seeing an increased interest in anime and manga that may cross over to more toys here in America as kids are more interested in those well-written stories. Right, because we're not doing any really good anime here in this, or any cartoons really in the States. They're just not existent. So it's something that there's a lot of avenues, right? And there's already plenty of anime toys and manga toys out there, but they're all in Japan, and to import them is very cost prohibitive. So, I think there's plenty of toys. Like, for example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if they'd have come out with an American licensed, decently articulated Full Metal Alchemist toy line, people would have gone nuts for it. You know what I mean? I think that you have to find the properties that appeal to kids, but you put out a quality enough product that can appeal to a collector as well. And I hate to keep saying Final Faction, but Final Faction. There's things that you could do, and I wish them all the best of luck. I really do. Whether it's a Hasbro, Mattel, or these smaller companies coming up, there's tons of stuff that's out there. Even some of the new IPs are meant to be like, we'll play these with your Joes and stuff like that, which is fine. I have no issue with that. But it's also difficult to write a new IP, let's be honest. A fresh idea that actually lands. Whether or not we're going to see something like that in the future, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I hope so. But in the absence of some new IP coming along, some new television show or movie that knocks my socks off and really makes a splash, I do want to see good toy lines for all the things that I love, because I want a little bit of everything in my collection. But I'm an adult. and I have a finite amount of time on this earth, and I'm not necessarily going to be your target audience for a brand new IP. So Jonathan says it seems a really bad business model to not want to pull in current generation of children like we were back in the day so they can grow up to be collectors like we are now. I agree. I think that's one of the biggest problems. They just don't know how to do it. Target carries some Bandai and SH Figure Arts for the DBZ line. Right, but they don't carry all their toys, and as such, some things are not in there. Love to see a G-Force Gatchaman toy line update for the U.S. market. Cool. Ken's here from Toy Connections. If you're not subscribed to Toy Connections, you need to go do it right after this show. Or even go do it right now. It won't hurt my feelings. He's worth it. Check him out. Does some great, great stuff, and I may or may not be appearing on a show with him in the near future. You never know. Keep your eyes peeled and your ears tuned, and we'll see what's going on. Storm Collectibles has some Gatchaman figures out. Ken the Eagle drops this year. Very cool, very cool, very cool. Very cool. Very cool. You're welcome, pal. No worries. So, I think ultimately, when we talk about, things getting recycled over and over and over and over, on one hand, we like it. And on the other hand, we want to see new stuff. And it feels like we can't have both, but I feel like we can. I feel like we can have both. They just have to figure out what they want to do. Like Stranger Things. The time to make a Stranger Things toy line was right after that show came out. The first season. They didn't really do that. And now they're doing it again. But they're packing them in with turtles. And they're comic book turtles from our childhood. And I have no idea what that's about. I really don't. I do not know. It's fine. But now is the point in the show where we open it up to question and answers about anything. Anything we talked about today, anything we talked about in the past, anything you might want to talk about down the road, because it all helps. Coming this week is the Playmates Classic Turtles reissue review, along with the Party Wagon. And there is also another video coming. I don't know which one's coming first. I honestly don't. It just depends upon how things, call out with work. We're definitely having 2 videos this week if I can help it. Yes, Ken's Desert Rat video is great. It's very well done. Jonathan Redmond says, would Stranger Things make a good kids' toy line if the show is not really kid-friendly? I mean, depending upon the parents, it'd be a good toy line for like 10 and up, right? And you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start somewhere. Karen Ball's got to go. You get some sleep in this heat. Take care, everyone. You take care too, sir. Thanks for always being here and being amazing. I love you to death. There's Godzilla is hitting the nail on the head here. I want toy lines, not collectible lines. $10 to $20 per figure, not $50 to $100 per figure. Is that too much to ask? No, it isn't. I think that's what it boils down to. And when you have a final faction that proves you can do compelling figures for $1.25, I would argue that in 3 3/4 inch scale, you could get a really great character, a really great figure for $5 very easily in this market. Whoever's in charge of Final Faction, they need to talk to that guy or gal or peoples, because they're doing it right. They're doing it right. I really feel like there's, because I honestly think that the when they gear things towards collectors, it's solely so they can jack up the price. I really believe that. I think they call it a collector thing just to jack up the price. And Jonathan also chiming in saying there's a lack of kids' cartoon shows aimed at selling toys to kids these days. Well, of course. But that's where I say do a YouTube series on that stuff. Take that risk. You can make money off of ad revenue on the shows, and you can also make a toy line if people react to it. And it's a minimal investment when compared to putting out a toy line and then letting it sit on the shelves with nothing to promote it. So there's stuff to be done. Bjorn says Lennard's doing decent stuff with the core Alien Predator stuff. Yeah, if you can find it, they have shit distribution. Great toys, shit distribution, hard to find. Toy line must be fun to play with, good pricing, and easy to find. Lennard's lacking that last one for sure. And yes, toys that don't turn into brittle powder in your hands. Looking at you, NECA. Just saying. So there's, varying degrees of success in the market now, and it's the whole thing. Andy says your husband agrees with me about the prices. Yeah. There's no reason for it not to happen, except for the fact that they're just trying to make the most money they can. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make the most money you can. That's okay. But you also have to provide value for the money that you're charging. Jim Largo says, maybe you should track down the Final Faction toy makers for an interview and then needle them up future releases. That's already in the pipe. I'm trying to figure that out now. Jonathan Redmond says, YouTube seems like a no-brainer when you think about it. No having to deal with TV stations and streaming services. Exactly. Now, the only thing they'd have to deal with on YouTube is that it is kid-friendly content, and that's a whole thing in and of itself, right? So it makes sense. It makes sense, but it would be difficult to do, but not impossible. They just have to put the effort in, I think. And I see several people echoing Mr. Largo saying, I need to get a Final Faction person on here. I would love to do it. Love to do it. Then if you find some through lines for that, let me know. Some of you have reached out. Reach out again so I can try to make that happen. I'd love to get a couple people from the Final Faction line on here at one time. Just be like, first of all, we love your product very, very much. Keep making it. You're awesome. I'd love to let them know that for $5 we'll pay for something. Now, think about the click and play toy line that's out there. For those of you who don't know, it's 3 3/4 inch scale military line. There's an amazing video on Tony's channel about click and play. They are so good. We were gushing over them during one of our Patreon meetups this weekend. Imagine if the Final Faction folks started doing click and play level play sets for Final Faction at the same value price points. It'd be a $10, $20 play set and more vehicles. Yes, please. I'd buy them all. Some of them in triplicate because they'd be cheap. So the whole thing. Rollo says, the good thing is we can make the difference. We have it in our hands and we will do so. Sometimes it just happens like that and our wishes become true. Exactly. Sometimes you just have to take the shit chance. You have to take the risk, which folks like Rollo is willing to do. Worldman of Cardboard says, one problem is that there are laws in the U.S. that restrict how a company can market to children. The FCC was deregulated in the 80s massive toy market, re-regulated in the 90s, Toys R Us died. It's true. It's a big part of it. So you have to be careful. Keith Knight's got a fuck off. Foxtrot Oscar. Head meds have kicked in. I'll be a George Romero extra in 5, 4, 3, 2. Peace, chaps. Love you too, pal. Thanks for being here. Hope you feel good in the morning. Jonathan says, Jim, Jonathan says, Jim, I'd say YouTube would bend over backwards for a big company like Hasbro dropping a new and exclusive kids show on their platform. I think they would too. But they have to deal with the FCC. It's interesting. Gototron says it's tough to depend on a cartoon to sell a toy line in the days of streaming. Cartoons are not appointment viewing like they were in the 80s. Saturday morning and after school cartoons are dead. It's true. Jim Largo also saying Click and Play is a great affordable toy line. I agree 100%. Romantic Cardboard says Final Faction has an Instagram and they've responded to DMs. Well, guess what? I'll be doing this week. Jonathan Redmond also says Hasbro put up all the old G.I. Joe and Transformer cartoons on the channel. Yes, they have. Chris Miwa says, need to catch up on some sleep. Tropical temperatures tomorrow. Thanks for a great stream. No, thank you for showing up. That's the reason we do it. Glad you were here. Hope you enjoyed it. Get some sleep. Love your face, man. We'll talk soon. And apparently there's a new Micronauts cartoon. I didn't know about that. Or if I did, I've forgotten. I'm old and I drink sometimes. So, all of that said, I do think that there's always potential in all these things, whether it's an old IP that could use a good revamp or a new one that needs a good push. Someone is going to unlock the code, even more so than a Final Faction has, and I cannot wait for that to happen. But looks like we might have to, because the current state of things, they're marketing to collectors, but yet saying that they're not, and it's the whole thing. And when you look at a Hasbro that put how many millions of dollars into a Snake Eyes movie that wasn't even Snake Eyes, imagine taking that same budget and putting into a really solid cartoon, an adult cartoon. Because even cartoons are for adults too. Animation works, and there's so much stuff that could be done that no one's doing, and it's just a matter of time before they hit the right thing. Rolo says that should become a t-shirt. I'm old and I drink sometimes. Yeah, I should probably do that one. There's a lot of shirts I should do, but we gotta wait for the rebrand, which will happen at some point. So Ben Sutley says, cheers, great stream. Cheers, stay cool. Absolutely 100%, folks. We need to do that. So all of that to say, I had a great time today. Great discussion. Great turnout, folks. Thank you so much. If you like the show, consider dropping a like. Consider dropping a subscribe if you haven't. Follow each other. Almost many people in this chat are content creators. Support each other. That's how this community grows positively, and we get more and more cool stuff made. And just to be fair, if you like what you see, you can always do a super like, or a super chat, or a super sticker, or join the Patreon. Become part of that micro community. We're doing some great stuff over there. So support the channels that you love, and we'll keep supporting everything and give you things that you love. So I really appreciate you. I will be seeing you guys in the near future on a video this Thursday. Otherwise, take care. I love you. Good night.